Good evening, folks. Mrs. P here once again. I can't believe we're almost halfway through the year. In 9 days, your students will be going on winter break to return in January 2020. Halfway to junior high already. Exciting times, nervous times as well. I'm having a visit with you today for a new video on our new concept that we're learning in class, known as ratios and rates. We're working with proportions in the 6th grade right now. That's our new unit. So in that unit, we're going to cover things like ratios and rates, percentages, and measurements. So the first lessons we did today, which we covered 3, they were all visual, so it was pretty easy, were ratios. And ratios, we discussed in the time that we were here today, that they look like fractions. Right there, if your children were to see this, or your student were to see this, they would say 3/5. Oh, that's a fraction, meaning that I have, let's just make a shape, a rectangle. It has 5 parts in it, and I have 3 out of the 5. This is what they've visually been seeing so far in the 6th grade, fractions. Well, now we're also going to let them know that this can be represented as a ratio as well. And it means something different, although it looks the same. For us, ratios are actually a comparison of 2 quantities by division. The tricky part is this word known as division. Before, a fraction is a division problem. You have 3 out of the 5 parts. So if I want to find anything out about that, what decimal it is, what percent it is, I use a division process. For ratios, though, it's just a comparison looking at something that's not the same. This is a whole. But for a ratio, if I said that 3/5 is a ratio, I could be using just a visual concept, such as there are 3 stars and 5 circles. And ratios usually are a visual concept, whether it's numbers or pictures or drawings or items that they have. What we're really asking them to do when they are thinking about ratios is saying to themselves, what's the comparison? How do these 2 things relate mathematically? Well, I have 3 stars and I have 5 circles. So the ratio is 3:5, or 3:5, or 3:5. And we discussed this today about the way we write a ratio, which is how we can kind of differentiate how it's different than a fraction. A fraction you typically write just this way with a fraction bar. You can do that with the ratio as well, but we can also use a colon, meaning 3:5, or we can write out the words 3:5. And it's just simple comparison of items that you see. We use my door today. I have stars and baseballs on it. You simply count the objects, and the word division here means how do I separate them by each thing and what item they are. Here I separated them by the stars and by the circles. That's what the word division means in a ratio. Not division as a long division process where they're going to divide 3 by 5. That's a fraction. This is a ratio, just a visual comparison of 2 objects or more than 2 objects. So we talked about that today, how it looks like a fraction, but you don't do the same thing with it as a fraction, how you can write those in 3 different ways, and then how you can make them equivalent. And so if I want 3/5 as a ratio, and say it's the stars, the circles, how can I make an equivalent ratio? Only 2 ways. I can multiply that ratio, or I can divide that ratio, and I have to know which one will work. Remember, anytime we do something in math, again, it has to balance like a scale. So if I'm going to multiply this ratio, I have to do the same to the top and the bottom. If I'm going to divide this ratio, I have to do the same thing to the top and the bottom. Well, in this case, for 3/5, I can't divide it. There's nothing that will go into 3 and 5 that's the same numerically that will give me an equivalent and a ratio that is equal to 3/5. So the only option I have is multiplication, and I can just start right in the numerical line. This is 3/5, which was 3 times 1 and 3 times 5. I can then go to 2. That's going to give me 6/10. That's an equivalent ratio. I can then say this times 3, and it's going to give me 9/15. That's an equivalent ratio. These are the 3 things we talked about today. What is a ratio, and what does it look like? Can I represent it and write it? Can I tell the difference between it? And can I make an equivalent ratio based on what I know from my previous understanding of mathematics? And that was just our opening introduction to ratios today. You'll find all of that out today on the newsletter that I send home to you. I will let you know, parents, this is going to be a quick unit. By next week, we are going to take a test on ratios and rates. So I'm letting you be prepared and preparing your students. Here are all of our standards. Here's our calendar of events and what we're going to be doing. And by next week, we're going to be reviewing. We're trying a new little thing, seeing if we can move us along a little quicker. If you have any questions, do you have any thoughts, feelings, or concerns, please always reach out to me. You can contact me at any time. I hope you have a great evening, and until next time, thank you very much.